So, the next part of this lesson is independent and dependent clauses. So, a clause is just a group of words. That's really the only definition for a clause. So, when you hear the word clause, don't get thrown off. It's just a fancy way to say a group of words. So, for independent clause, this is the first one. It's a group of words with at least one subject and one predicate. It forms a complete thought. Because it forms a complete thought, independent clauses can stand alone. They don't need any other words to help them out. It is a complete sentence. So, examples of independent clauses are she rode her bike to town, the teacher graded the tests, three ducks swam in a pond and splashed, Enrique and Emily studied in the library. Next is dependent clause. For dependent clause, a group that is a group of words with a subject and a predicate. So that is the same thing as an independent clause. They are both groups of words with a subject and a predicate. However, they differ because an independent clause forms a complete thought. A dependent clause does not. It does not form a complete thought. And therefore, it cannot stand on its own because it's not a complete sentence. It's often marked as word by words such as I forget what this one is. After, there we go. After, although, as, this one is because, before, even, if, even though, if is in here twice. In order to, since, though, unless, until, when, wherever, whether, and this last one is while. So here are some examples. When she rode her bike to town, although he prefers to cook Italian food, before she did all of her homework, as if he knew what was going to happen, no matter how you look at it, and before the food gets cold. These are all examples or phrases of dependent clauses. Here's a really good test to figure out if something is an independent clause or a dependent clause. If you're in a conversation with someone, or imagine that you're in a conversation with someone, and you say the phrase or the words, think about how that person would react. So, if I'm in a conversation with someone and we're talking about a teacher, and I said the teacher graded the tests, they would accept that. They would be like, okay, that makes sense. If I just was talking to someone maybe about um, a chef that I know, and I said, although he prefers to cook Italian food, and then I stopped, the person might look at me strange. It's not a complete thought and it's not a complete sentence, and it leaves the other person kind of wondering, like, what are they saying? The same thing is if I said, like, as if we knew this was going to happen, and then I don't continue the phrase, um, that would be an example of a dependent clause. So, in this independent practice, we're going to go through and identify whether it's an independent clause or a dependent clause. If you haven't done this yet, I suggest that you pause the video at this point before we go over the answers, just that you can try to identify independent and dependent clauses on your own and then see if we can do it together. Okay, so let's see how you did. The line at the grocery store was very long. That's an independent clause. She likes pizza, independent. After waiting in line for 3 hours to ride the roller coaster, that's dependent because it's not a complete thought. What did you do after waiting in line for 3 hours to ride the roller coaster? After waiting in line for 3 hours to ride the roller coaster, we got pizza. The birthday party will be a lot of fun. Independent. When I graduate from high school, dependent. Once the children are done playing, dependent. The baseball player threw the ball, that's independent. The clouds in the sky look rather ominous, that's independent. Before the football teams practice each day after school, that's dependent. Once upon a time in a land far, far away, that is dependent. He fell off his bike is independent. The kids baked a cake for their friends. That's independent. After reading the entire book, that's dependent. Whoops. Whenever we go to the whenever we go to the amusement park with our best friends, that is dependent, and he fell is independent. So you can use all the other tools that you have to study, but if you have any questions, let me know.